All right, my name's Matt Gonzales. I'm on location in my own apartment, special correspondence for Pot TV. My editors are Harold Brown and Tony Dorenzo, apparently. We're here with Tony Hall, and it's a subject of the Chris Daly roast, and Tony's agreed to answer a few questions about our dear friend Chris Daly. Okay, Tony, let's start off. I want to ask you, I know that you have a bit of a background as a boxer yourself. There's a lot of stories about you having sparred with Cassius Clay back in the day. And I want to ask you your opinions of the fight that took place between Willie Brown and Chris Daly. I think it was back in 2001. Give us your remembrance of that blow-by-blow occurrence.
Well, it's wonderful to be interviewed by you, Matt. Being the former president of the board, he kept peace between Daly and I and other factions on that board, as no other person can do. The particular fight, I wasn't there. I heard a lot about it. And apparently Chris instigated it. And Willie came out behind the desk and was ready to duke it out with Chris. I think Willie's guards, or his drivers, stepped in between. Chris, I have to say, I'm not quite sure whether you could have handled that one, but gave you a lot of credit for doing the pre-fight promotion.
Let me ask you this, Tony. Since you didn't see the fight, you're familiar with both these guys,
right.
Their builds, their
right.
style.
Right.
Who do you think would win in a serious matchup between Willie Brown and Chris Daly?
I'd have to put my money at that time, Chris, I'm sorry to say, on Willie. I think he probably was lighter, maybe in a little bit better shape than you were. You were a little pudgy at that time. I was worried about your conditioning. But you had a lot of good.
How many rounds would that one have gone?
Maybe half a round. About a half a round, Chris.
All right, let me ask.
I was sizing you up that whole time because I figured you and I were going to get into it. But Matt kept peace. He was a good referee.
I want to ask you about another incident. I don't know if this is family programming, but Chris Daly once told a member of the public during a committee meeting to fuck off. I don't know if you were there when that happened. Could you tell us about that?
I was there. I think the first time it happened.
Did it actually happen, or is this all a
yeah. No. Chris stood up and told a number of people to fuck off, and I gave you a lot of credit for that, Chris, because there was a lot of people we all wanted to tell to fuck off, but at least you stood up and did it. So I've always admired your courage on this type of thing. Your style is a little bit in question, but give you a lot of credit.
Let me ask you this: there was a time in 2003 when Willie Brown took a vacation. I don't know if it was to Tibet or to China or something like that.
I think it was, yeah.
And I guess he left Chris Daly as the acting mayor. And at the time, it had been Willie Brown's intention to appoint Andrew Lee to the PUC. Gavin Newsom was supportive of this. And I guess Chris decided to appoint a couple of members of the PUC since he was the mayor. One of those was Adam Werbach, who is a well-known environmentalist. Any thoughts on that appointment and what transpired?
Well, I came out against the appointment because Chris, I thought it was inappropriate. However, the person that he chose was better than Willie Brown's person, so kind of took the steam out of my argument. You would have upended my argument, Chris, because your appointment, although I thought it was illegal and had a run-in with the city attorney over the legality of it, I think that your appointment probably was better as we look back over the history of the city.
Well, let me ask you then,
yeah.
What do you think about Chris Daly for mayor then? If he makes good appointments to the PUC, he's actually one of the few supervisors who has actually done a sort of mayoral act, and you're giving it some support here. Is that a potential endorsement of his candidacy?
No, I'd rather see Chris open this bar that he's talking about. But behind the plank, Chris, you have to have that photo of you and I and Matt, which I have. It's a terrific photo. All three of us about to sip a glass of beer, and the look in our eyes, it was an amazing photo. So if you put that behind the bar, forget the mayor's run. Put that behind the bar and you're going to have a very successful run.
It's incredible what opposition to Gavin Newsom will do, huh?
Unbelievable.
Bring together...
Unbelievable. In fact, Chris and I actually became a lot closer because we, as time passed, we realized that the biggest threat to this city was the incumbent mayor. I do want to say this, Chris, though. I know you didn't feel a lot of love in those early days. In fact, I think that was one of your proclamations. You weren't feeling the love. But with so many good friends like in this room, wishing you the best, and I do give you credit for hanging in there for the number of years you did and articulating your position. I hope you feel the love now, because there's a lot of people that appreciate the courage you took in taking the stances you did, and having the guts to never change your position. I will say that, and this is supposed to be a roast, but give you a lot of credit. And
well, let me ask you one last question. Yeah. The way the board chambers are configured, you sat, when we first took office, in Harvey Milk's old seat, I'm told, and to your right was Gavin Newsom, and to your left was Chris Daly.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you might say something about being close to both these guys and what that was like.
Well, there was a lot of times, I think, when Chris was going to get up and pop Newsom, who didn't have the ability to stand up and fight back. So I thought I was going to be the referee there and have to protect Chris. Well, actually have to protect Gavin.
From Chris?
From Chris, yeah. Chris had a lot of guts. He would talk out.
You ever play basketball with him?
No, I saw him play a basketball game.
Any insight on that, about your future ability to run a bar?
You did a lot of butting with your butt in the game I saw. I think you were playing against Ellsburn, and it was rather interesting to watch two guys who I don't think had an awful lot of native athletic ability, but you guys did the best you could.
All right, my editors are saying that's enough. Thanks for the interview. Cheers. Good luck to Chris Daly.
Good luck, Chris. Well, here we are in the studio, the Matt Gonzales studio, and I get the pleasure of interviewing the former president of the board and the greatest referee that I've ever known, Matt Gonzales. And Matt, it's a pleasure to be here with you on this roast for our good buddy Chris Daly.
It's good to chat with you.
My first question, Matt, is how did you handle all that action of the board?
Well,
I mean, what were your thoughts, really?
I don't know how to answer that. I think it was a pretty contentious time because Willie Brown was the mayor. We'd been elected on an anti-Willie Brown kind of wave, and there's no question about it. There was a lot of insults that were being hurled around, and by and large, it's kind of like, how do you say it? It's presiding over a petty tribunal in a way. You can't overthink what it is. It's not that big of a deal.
For instance, that fight that you had asked me about, or supposed fight between Chris and Willie in Willie's office. How did you take that as president of the board? How did you interpret that?
Well, I wasn't president of the board when that happened, although I did later hear both versions, Willie Brown's version and Chris Daly's version, and quite honestly, I didn't believe either version, honestly. It's like that Kurosawa film, Rashomon or something. Something's not... I've never really felt that I got the true story there.
Well, when you were president of the board, there were several incidences where Daly told people to fuck off in public comment. What was your feeling about that?
Well, I don't want to confirm or deny that ever occurred. I'd rather just leave that one alone.
Okay, all right. When he appointed Adam Werbach to the PUC. As acting mayor. Chris was acting mayor. What was your feeling on that?
Well, I will tell you a story about this. It's the only time Willie Brown called me. I was president of the Board of Supervisors, and I always had a bit of a arm's length relationship with him. And he was traveling in Tibet or China, and was Mayor Brown was, and he was pissed off, to say the least, to learn during his travels that Chris had done this. And his chief of staff had called me into the mayor's office to take this call from Willie Brown. And of course, I was acting like, oh, why does Willie Brown want to talk to me? And I went in there, and Willie framed it from the perspective of a member of my legislature was bringing discredit and dishonor to the Board of Supervisors. What was I going to do about it? And I thought it was very interesting, and I said, well, you know, I don't really think it's a problem with the Board of Supervisors. He says, what do you mean? Chris Daly's one of your members, and he's done this thing. And I said, well, he did this act as a mayor. So it's really a mayor's appointment, and the board has now got to look at it and decide whether or not we're going to approve it or not. Now, I had been a major critic of this idea that you needed a supermajority to vote down an appointment. And I had been, and you had been working with me on various commissions to changing that to getting a majority approval, which gave the board a chance to be able to shoot down a mayoral pick. So it was beautiful, the irony was beautiful, this notion that here's Mayor Brown, who opposed those reforms, now had to go and get 8 votes on the board to overturn this appointment that he didn't like, and I relished that one. And, you know, it was very unusual. We were on the Rules Committee. A mayor came to the committee to urge us to vote down the Wereback appointment, and I voted with Aaron Peskin and Tom Amiano. I think Tom was absent, but the 3 of us were the ones that made it impossible for Willie to overturn it. But, and here's the other thing. I did say to Willie, I said, you know, this wouldn't have happened if I had been the acting mayor, but you know, alas, he had never invited me to be the acting mayor, and I was the only member of the board that had never that he had never made that overture to. And again, the irony was not lost on me, because here he was so pissed off that this had happened to him, and well, there you have it.
Somehow I get the feeling that Matt Gonzales, as president of the board, was furthering the people's business of the city by using us supervisors.
Oh, I don't know about that. That's overstated.
You did a lot of good. But
yeah.
Chris was is the subject here, and
you know, yeah. I like Chris a lot, and we were allies. But honestly, I will say this, and not even a part of a roast. I mean, it's just the truth. Sometimes Chris, yeah, we were allies, obviously. He would get up and start arguing a point, and I would just be thinking in my head, for God's sake, shut the fuck up and sit down. I mean, you're not helping the situation. You know, so like, I'm trying to move forward a minimum wage measure, and then Chris stands up and says, we should have a maximum wage. And it's like, okay, I get the theory, but now is not the time. Or we're trying to put a Dakota toilet on a public street, and he stands up and says, what's wrong with people shooting up inside these toilets? And it's like, Chris, God's sake, man, we're trying to actually pass legislation.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
But well, Matt, is this an endorsement for Chris to go on for mayor, or what is this? Would you give him your endorsement?
No comment.
No comment.
I do think he's going to be a good bar tavern owner, though. It'll be a great place, and I think it'll be one of these things where, in a relatively short amount of time, people will forget, and this is a good thing. They'll forget that he was ever a member of the Board of Supervisors. They won't believe it. They'll be like, hey, the guy tending bar used to be on the Board of Supervisors. It'll just be a joke. No one will believe it. They'll see Chris Daly signs up, and nobody will believe that he ever served. That's what I think.
Well, if he opens,
I don't mean it as a bad thing, H. It's just the truth. That's how these things happen.
He's coming back.
All right. Cheers. We're done.